My name is Diane Baum, and I've lived in Grand Rapids for a lot of years. I was born here. I work as a legal assistant, and the office I work in does immigration law. I also want to say that I'm Jewish, and that's a big thing to me. I'm a very religious person. I go to our synagogue every week, and I do Torah study, and I'm very cognizant of that our religion tells us to treat the stranger well. And I feel that here in this country we do not treat our strangers as if they were guests. My grandparents were immigrants, and almost my father. I think my father was born as soon as the boat landed, maybe the next year. So they were practically immigrants. My father's first language was not English. So I have a special affinity towards treating immigrants well because the office I work in is an immigration law office. Most of the cases we handle are for immigrants that are having difficulty. They may have been arrested, have been in deportation. There's a lot of very, very sad stories in our office. People might see the immigration issue and just think of it as an abstraction, but in our office it's a reality. It's a human cost to this abstraction. My particular job, I'm a writer. I've always wanted to be a writer. I studied English. I like to write poetry. And what I do in the office is I write up the stories for people that have extreme hardships because perhaps their husband or wife or provider is facing deportation, and that person may have been here 10, 20 years trying to become legal, and or have been brought over as a small child with their family, doesn't know any other language, doesn't know anything about their home country, has no relatives in their home country. All their relatives are here. They're completely acculturated to the United States, and suddenly they're looking at deportation because often it's because of a quirk in the law and the law is almost non-understandable. It's a Byzantine patchwork of patches Congress put on here so they wouldn't have to really deal with an overhaul with the issue. So I write up the story because if it's an extreme hardship, not just a normal hardship, but an extreme hardship to a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident who is legally here to have their husband or wife or some kind, even significant other deported, then if we write that story up and document it correctly, often they will get a waiver. So, so I write up their story. It may be 14 or 15 pages long about how their lives are intertwined with the lives of a dear citizen or a family here, and how they help. We had one person who helped his wife put in an IV every day for her mother, who had a severe medical condition at home, and supported the mother, and he was and children, and he was looking at deportation. We had a situation where two young girls came with their entire family. They applied to become citizens. The father was a legal permanent resident bringing his family here, and he waited so long that the older, he didn't wait. He was very good at filing on time and applying for things, but the law kept changing and changing, and by the time the entire family was allowed to remain here, the older girls, who were just little when they came, were too old. They were over 21, and they were considered too old. And then last month, a new ruling came out saying that they were not too old. And this was after they'd been in deportation for years and been fighting it and fighting it and fighting it, because this was the only country they knew. Their entire family was here. They had children that were now U.S. citizens. They were completely enmeshed in this country, and they were facing deportation. And the laws are crazy. They're just crazy. Comprehensive immigration reform is very important to me because it has to be comprehensive. It can't be another patchwork solution to please a certain constituency. It has to be a complete overhaul of the system. The system is very old, and they keep patching it up to fit the fashion of the time. And when you see how complicated the laws are and how people try to meet those laws, maybe 20 years. When my grandparents came here, they didn't have to wait 20 years to become legal. They just got off the boat and they were welcomed. And that was it. They couldn't be where they were anymore. There was too much discrimination, and they came here and started a new life. That now when we have people doing the same thing, we might have somebody who's an asylum applicant who's actually been beaten up in their home country, comes here, they're in hiding for 10 years. They can't go back. They can't be found by the authorities because there's no way they can stay here. It's very, very difficult. And we must overhaul the system because we may be in that same situation someday ourselves. I am really for comprehensive immigration reform because it's sort of like having a party where you have the same guests all the time and no one new is ever going to show up and no one's allowed to bring their friends. It's always the same people. And you know, there's no children and there's no new elements. And I think it's very important for any country to stay vibrant, to have new people coming in all the time, to have people taking the place of workers that perhaps have retired. Our workers may be retired and they might go live in Guadalajara for their senior years. And why can't a worker come here to help replace that person? It's very important not to have a stagnant system where no new people are coming in, where our Social Security will just get smaller and smaller and smaller, and there'll be no tax base. People want to live here, they want to come here, they want to contribute to our society. We always had immigrants come. The only people that aren't immigrants are Native Americans who were here, and that's what this country is all about. I had a young woman that I was writing up. She came here as a legal immigrant. She worked really hard. She got scholarships. She did extremely well in school. She studied. She is doing very well in her career and her job. And she fell in love, and she had suffered abuse in Mexico as a child. And she let me start that.
Start that could you just start that thing over there saying
okay.
She suffered abuse in Mexico?
She suffered abuse in Mexico with her family. Her mother was abused. The mother fled the abuse, came to America with the daughter. They established a new life here. She did very well in school. She has a very good job, and they just love her at her job. And she'd never had a boyfriend. She always stuck really close to her mother. And I know because I had to write up her story as part of my job. So she finally fell in love, and she's in her late 20s, and she fell in love with a man who lives in Mexico. And in his past, he had lived here. He doesn't live here anymore. He came up just briefly. He was living here illegally. He went back, and she and he have been engaged for 3 or 4 years. The priest is ready, the church is ready, everything's ready, and he can't come. He's not allowed to come and marry her because the immigration laws will not permit it. Many people think that all you have to do is marry a citizen and it's fine. But I see people every day that are married or are trying to get married. They might have children. They might have 5 children, and they cannot become legal. It's almost impossible to become legal now, no matter how many people depend on you, no matter what you've done, no matter how many hearts you break of people who need you, no matter who you're going to throw on welfare, and that happens as well. You can't become legal, and we have to stop that.